Okay, let's dive right into today's explainer. I want you to picture something. Imagine a really powerful figure walking straight through the middle of a packed, chaotic market. And the crowd, they just part. But not because guards are shoving them out of the way. No, they step back out of this almost instinctual awe. It's just the silent, crushing weight of that person's presence. That invisible force, that is the absolute peak of social power. And that's exactly what we're unpacking today.
Reputation is the only thing that wins the battle before it even begins. I want you to let that sink in for a second. In this ruthless game of survival we're all playing, your unseen aura, that's literally your greatest weapon. Our sources make it super clear. Appearances are pretty much the barometer for how we judge everything. A solid reputation acts like a shield. It distracts people from probing too closely and gives you total control over how the world sees you.
And the stakes here are absolutely massive. Just look at the difference. On one hand, you've got the grand shield. When you have a monumental reputation, you get to live in this unshakable peace. You're protected, you're imposing, and honestly, you win without ever throwing a single punch. But contrast that with the vulnerable target. If you don't have a reputation, or worse, yours is ruined, you're completely exposed, you look desperate, and you're just exhausted because you're forced to fight every single battle that comes your way. To really see this in action, let's look at a wild historical example from China's War of the Three Kingdoms. It's known as the strategy of the empty city. So picture this. The brilliant commander Zhuge Liang is resting in this tiny town, and he's only got about 100 men to defend it. Suddenly, scouts come rushing in with literally terrifying news. An enemy force of over 150,000 troops, led by a rival general named Sima Yi, is marching straight for them. It's a completely hopeless situation, right? But Liang doesn't panic. Instead, he orders his men to take down their flags, throw the city gates wide open, and just hide. Then, he puts on a Taoist robe, sits up on the most visible part of the city wall, lights some incense, and calmly starts playing a lute. So here's where it gets crazy. Sima Yi rides up with his 150,000 men. He looks up and sees Liang just chilling, playing his lute. Now, Sima Yi knows Liang. He knows his massive reputation as the sleeping dragon, basically the cleverest guy in China, a guy who literally always has a trick up his sleeve. And the scene is just so calm, so obviously theatrical, that Sima Yi gets terrified. He is absolutely convinced it's a deadly trap. So what does he do? He orders an immediate, full-speed retreat. Seriously. Liang defeated 150,000 men with some incense, a lute, and the towering power of his reputation.
Part 1. The Glass Citadel. The Vulnerability of Power.
Now that story is the incredible high of a masterful reputation. But we kind of need to shift gears here, because this invisible fortress is also incredibly fragile. See that shattered number 1? That represents a single slip, one awkward moment. It's like watching a beautiful crystal glass drop in slow motion and completely shatter on a hard marble floor. That is exactly what happens to your reputation if you aren't careful. It takes decades of meticulous, grueling work to build this kind of power, and literally 1 second, one unforced error to completely destroy the whole shebang. Once it slips, you're instantly vulnerable. And trust me, the sources note you will be attacked from all sides.
So how do we keep the glass from shattering? Well, it's all about the foundation. You absolutely must pick one, just one, undeniable, sterling trait to build your monument on. Maybe it's unbreakable honesty, or, absolute cunning, or incredible efficiency. This simplicity is what makes your reputation impenetrable. It becomes your calling card. The sources even point out that a reputation for pure seductiveness, like Casanova had, acts like a literal spell. It makes people curious and brings the world right to your front door.
Part 2. Projecting the giant shadow. Okay, once you've got that rock-solid foundation, we step into the realm of projection. Think of your reputation like a master illusionist trick. It's this massive force multiplier that exaggerates your strength, and you don't even have to lift a finger. It's kind of like a solitary wolf. Imagine one lone wolf standing its ground against an entire pack. It doesn't actually have to fight. It just bares its teeth and looks ferocious. It wins purely through the terrifying image of being dangerous. And it is the exact same dynamic in human social circles.
And this brings us to a stunning example from World War II. During the fighting in the North African desert, German General Erwin Rommel built up this terrifying reputation for cunning and deceptive maneuvering. And it got to the point where, even when his forces were completely depleted, we're talking British tanks outnumbering his 5 to 1, the sheer rumor of his approach caused entire cities to be evacuated. Rommel proved that your reputation inevitably precedes you. If you inspire fear or respect, the heavy lifting is completely done before you even walk in the room. Part 3. The theater of war. Offense and defense. But what happens when someone actually comes after your name? In this arena, reputations are defended with absolute silence, and rival fortresses are dismantled with nothing more than whispers. So when defending yourself, you've got to build your armor in 2 steps. 1. Remain immovable. And 2. Ignore slander. The sources issue a really strict warning here. Never ever react to slander with anger. If you get defensive, you don't look innocent. You just look horribly insecure. When enemies take shots at you, taking the high road and acting completely unfazed shows an unshakable confidence in your own worth.
But what if you're the one on the offensive? Say you need to take down a rival whose reputation is in your way. You basically weaponize doubt over time. It starts with a quiet whisper, just a seed planted that takes days to spread. Over a few weeks, that morphs into unsettling public doubt. Now your opponent is in a trap. If they deny it, people wonder, why are they defending themselves so desperately? But if they ignore it, the unrefuted doubt just keeps growing. Eventually, this maddening pressure forces the rival into frantic, self-destructive mistakes.
Now there's a masterclass tactic for this. Our sources show a stark contrast between slander and mockery. Outright slander, it's ugly, it's petty, and honestly, it just reveals your own weakness. But gentle mockery, that is charming, it's dominant, and it completely disarms the opponent. P.T. Barnum used this perfectly against a rival museum owner named Peale. Peale was out there promoting high-class scientific mesmerism, so Barnum fought back by staging a fake hypnotism parody. He pretended to hypnotize a little girl, but the whole thing was this hilarious, botched farce that had the audience absolutely roaring with laughter. By poking holes in Peale's towering image with effortless laughter, Barnum destroyed his rival's scientific credibility for good.
However, this brings us to a very dark warning. There's absolute peril in going too far when you attack an enemy's foundation. Vengeance can and will blow up in your own face.
Historical accounts give a terrifying illustration of this through Thomas Edison. Yeah, the titan of invention. He desperately wanted to ruin the reputation of his rival, Nikola Tesla. Edison supported direct current, while Tesla backed alternating current, or AC. Edison was so furious, so desperate to prove AC was unsafe, that he actually captured household pets and electrocuted them. And when that horrific spectacle wasn't enough, actually, scratch that. He went even further. He secretly helped organize the world's first execution by electrocution using AC, and it was a horrific, botched disaster. Edison went way, way too far. The whole campaign ended up damaging his own reputation at the time far more than it ever hurt Tesla's. He didn't look brilliant, he just looked vicious.
Part 4. The Unshakable Foundation.
So, what if you do mess up and your name gets stained? Well, the sources reveal a final secret to mending a fractured reputation. It's called whitewashing the stain. Basically, if your image is ruined, you must instantly associate your name with a paragon of pristine virtue. You can't easily erase a reputation for dishonesty all on your own, but look at P.T. Barnum again. When he wanted to shed his reputation for cheap, vulgar entertainment, he didn't just put out an apology. Instead, he sponsored an American tour for the European singer Jenny Lind, who had the stellar, high-class, absolutely pristine reputation. By simply associating with her, Barnum borrowed her glow, and his own image was vastly elevated.
We see this exact same tactic with the titans of industry, too. Think about the robber barons of 19th century America, guys like J.P. Morgan and Henry Frick. They were notorious for their ruthless, cruel business tactics. So how did they soften that brutal image? They started obsessively collecting fine art. By permanently tying their names to the timeless, beautiful art of Da Vinci and Rembrandt, they effectively whitewashed their historical legacy. Pretty wild, right?
Okay, let's wrap this whole shebang up. Building this impenetrable armor is a monumental task, but it really boils down to 3 clear steps. 1. Choose your one sterling quality. Make it simple. 2. Build that firm foundation slowly and carefully and guard it against all attacks. And 3. Once that foundation is unshakable, let the rumors, the awe, and the respect spread like wildfire. Let it do the heavy lifting for you before you even enter the room.
Which leaves us with one final, lingering thought for this explainer. Will you take control, master your own fate, and forge your shield? Or will you just neglect your name, let others decide how you're perceived, and remain forever vulnerable in the open field? The choice of how the world sees you is entirely in your hands. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and I'll catch you in the next one.